Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday Night Breakdown. Daniel Routledge and Dave Forrester with you to go through all of the action this week in the British Basketball League. So we'll go back to Friday night and see how good our memory is with the game that there was so much to remember in, which was Plymouth City Patriots 110, Bristol Flyers 103 after double overtime. No Kofi, no Shane Walker, no Miller. Nobody cares about any of that stuff. Let's get to the good stuff. Let's just forward it through to the bit that makes the difference. Ignore the beginning of the game. 2 minutes, 20 seconds to go in the third quarter. There's a dunk by Antonio Williams on the break. It's 58-56. A timeout is called. Rashad Hassan is running back down court. He's chatting a little bit to Samuels. Rogers comes over because he sees his teammate being chatted to, and then bring back key motion. All is forgiven. They go to a replay, and we don't really see quite what happens. They did show another replay, but it was, again, this is the drawback of the Pavilions. The lighting is so great there that it's all gone very dark.
It was a bit usual suspects that replay.
Yeah.
You got the shadow.
It was a little bit like that. But the referees had a big long conversation. Things went on for ages, and in the end, the benches of both teams were ejected from the game. So before we get into who said, she said, did what, the rule is during a fight, and a fight doesn't have to be punches thrown, it can just be an altercation of some description, any player leaving the coaching area or member of staff who isn't the head coach or the first assistant is automatically disqualified. Doesn't matter how far they get, doesn't matter what they do, doesn't matter anything. If they step onto the court in that situation, it's an automatic disqualification. So the gray area on this is there was a timeout called. They were walking onto the court, as players do, to high five each other and whatever at that point. And it's obviously gone a bit dark. The cheerleaders have run on. We can't quite see what's gone on. So to throw everybody out seems a little like guesswork, like, oh, everybody must have come on, so we'll throw them all out, was my take. I don't know if you had a slightly different one, Dave.
Not really. That's pretty close to it. The starting point for all of this is actually 2 minutes gone in the second quarter. And Williams attacks the rim and Samuels blocks him from behind. And Samuels, as players tend to do, says something, and almost immediately that he makes a play. It's probably something to get that out of here or something like that.
Yeah.
And he stood right next to Hassan at that point, and Hassan has a word with him as well. But that's kind of it. And then the next possession, you see Williams picking up Samuels a bit harder full court. So there's some that's the genesis of it, right? Then the third quarter, the game goes to the third quarter, and it got testy in the third quarter. It really, it wasn't. These teams had played each other 2 weeks ago or a week ago, so they know each other, and they're both, certainly the Plymouth team is quite brash in the way it's playing at the moment. It's got a rough edge to it, in the way it's attacking teams and going at them. In the third quarter, I thought Bristol got a pretty rough shake of it. Notice went up, got an offensive rebound, and was called for a foul. I have no idea how. I don't think the ref must have got confused. He ended up he went up about 12 feet in the air, got a rebound, was taken to the ground and was called for a foul. Then you could tell it was heating up a bit physically because Evans goes to the basket and is hip checked by Williams. And it's a foul. It wasn't a dangerous foul or anything like that. But he ends up, 4 feet off the court because as he's been going, he's hip checked. And much to my surprise, the refs called it on the floor when he picked the ball up about 5 seconds beforehand. So at this point, the game was getting testy, but there was nothing being done to control it, if I can put it that way. And this is where it becomes difficult, particularly in the Pavilions, because as you say, the lighting's different in the Pavilions. It's all a bit darker. You don't really have that peripheral kind of stuff that's going on. It really is a different environment anywhere else. And the trigger to this is that the play before that dunk, Samuels is open on the wing. He goes to shoot the ball. Williams comes out of nowhere, makes a great play, and rejects it into the Bristol bench. But the trigger isn't that, because Williams and Samuels can go at each other much as they want. They're playing each other position. They want to talk to each other. They want to make plays against each other. No problem. What happens is Hassan comes across on that play about 25 feet from under the basket, specifically to get into Samuels' face, to talk to Samuels. And at this point, the referees, from my perspective as a referee, you've got to be, your antennae have to be up here. Because not a week goes by on this show without me complaining about some weak technical, or why do you need to for that, or anything like that. But the reason that the refs have technicals in their armory is in order to protect the safety of the players and to allow them the ability to control the emotions of the game, because you've got 10 relatively fit, athletic, physical, committed people doing jobs of work which is directly up against each other, trying to maintain their livelihoods. And if there isn't certain things, and referees have lots in their armory, they have their humor, they have their personality, they have their ability, their demeanor, but they also have their whistle, and they have that technical foul for when the line is drawn. Now that was a stone cold technical on Hassan. There's no reason at all. In fact, it's quite embarrassing, to be blunt, for a 31-year-old or whatever it is, American veteran, to go over there and talk, to say that to a 21-year-old kid. If he'd made the block shot, that's fine. He can say what he wants, get that out of here, whatever. But you don't go across, you don't do that. And it's in front of the Bristol bench. So the Bristol team sees that, right? So there's an edge there. So there's another edge. There's Evans who's sitting on the bench at this point, pretty frustrated because he's just been hip checked into the on the baseline, and he complained to the ref after that he wasn't shooting shots. So his head's a bit like that as well. And then what happens is, again, Williams makes a great steal on half court. He goes up and he attacks and he dunks the ball, and he swings on the rim. And he swung on the rim pretty egregiously, to the point whereby, again, I thought I better go and look this up, because I don't always know this stuff. But what the rules do is they define what technicals should be. And one of the definitions of technical is hanging on the rim in such a way that the weight of the player is supported by the ring, unless a player grasps the ring momentarily following a dunk shot or is trying to prevent injury to himself or another player. Well, that was an egregious hanging on the rim, because he swung himself back, And again, it's a bit of a spoil sport thing to be saying, "Oh, guy hangs on the rim. Why should it be?" It's like touching the ball, It's like, no, but if you're my wife would call me a fun sponge, or you Grinch, or something like that. But in the environment that you're in at that point, which I've just basically detailed, where there's stuff going on in this game, and there is voices going on in this game, and there are people in it, and they played each other last week, and there is ill will being generated, right? At that point, again, that's an opportunity for a referee to turn around and say, that's enough. No one did it. What you then have is, as you say, and you nailed what happened. Timeout is called. King and Adekunle do nothing wrong. They come onto the court to high-five their guys as their guys are coming off. There's a lot of adrenaline in the building. A play's just been made. Samuels just walks back to his bench. Hassan happens to be standing there. I'm not sure how he happens to be standing there, if it's a choice of it, just that's where he was on the play. But he then says something else to Samuels, which again, in reality is the instigation of the whole incident, because he doesn't need to. He needs to walk back to his own bench. And really, if the refs had dealt with the first one properly, they'd have nipped it in the bud, or it would have been a second technical and he'd been gone. But he's the instigator. Samuels, to be fair, doesn't really do much, but what happens is Rogers who's just walking back to his bench for the timeout, does what a proper captain should do. And he walks in and says, whoa, basically, this is my guy. You pick on someone your own size effectively if you're talking about the law of the playground, That's what Roger says, and he doesn't physically threaten him, he doesn't whack him, or he doesn't push him. He just does exactly what he is meant to do, what I expect him to do. All of this happening right in front, a foot in front of the Bristol bench, where there is no proper reason for any Plymouth player to be, because a timeout's been called.
Yeah.
Right. That's that. So that's the physical genesis of the situation. Now, the referees have missed opportunities to control the game beforehand. Okay. And what happens when you miss the opportunities to control the game is ultimately what they realize, and they were probably correct in realizing, is, we have to sort this out now.
Yeah.
Now, prevention is better than cure. They went for cure. Right. And what they did was to say, wait, we're going to throw everybody out who's on the bench because everybody's come on the court. Now, and what we saw in the video footage, as I say, Hassan's the instigator. He should have got a technical. Evans, we see on the video footage, continuing the dispute, being held back.
Yeah.
That's a technical, because he's off the bench.
DQ. For me, he should have been DQ'd.
It's a technical borderline DQ. Okay,
well, because he's on the bench and he's come onto the court during.
No, it's not. No, sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's not automatic DQ because he's come off the bench on the court.
Yeah. If he was on the court, then maybe it's not a DQ. But the fact that he's been on the bench and he comes into the play, that's a DQ.
So he has to go. I agree with you. He has to go. And King and Adekunle, you see, this is where the rules come in, because you nailed the rules properly. And what you said was, it's only if these players come on the court during an altercation, right? So the exact phrase is, anybody who leaves the team bench area during a fight or during any situation which may lead to a fight shall be disqualified. Well, when King and Adekunle left the bench, there was no fight.
There wasn't a fight.
No, and there was nothing at that point
to suggest that there was going to be a fight. Yeah.
So on that basis, they should not have been disqualified.
Yeah.
Right. Now, secondly, unless there's something else, but even though they shouldn't, that's the rule. You have to do it during. If you're already on the court, that's not disqualification. Then you've got the Bristol guys, and because I watched, I did my, private detective
to the left.
Stuff. Yeah, back in private detective stuff to try and figure out what's going on. I don't see Delpesh at any point.
No.
I don't see, and Delpesh's a big guy. So
to be honest with you, apart from Evans, I didn't see any of the Flyers players on the court who weren't already on the court.
No, and even then, if the incident is happening a foot in front of that bench. So I know they're not meant to be even a foot on the court. That would be a technical. That would be a disqualification. But there's no way. And that the Pavilions is dark. That corner is dark. The Bristol corner, because that's the bench, the opposition bench, and the concept that Delpesh in particular, and he was the one that kind of stuck with me because it was a significant moment. He's the biggest guy out there, and just nowhere to be seen. So I don't know how they came to disqualify everybody, and the very fact that they disqualified everybody said to me that they didn't know who they should disqualify.
Yeah.
And that's and that's kind of understandable because it's a very fast-moving, difficult environment to police. But as I say, the reality is that they needed to get control of the game.
Yeah.
But this is a situation whereby, as I say, if you look at the rules, really, it was exaggerated. The reason it was exaggerated, the impacts were exaggerated, was because it hadn't been controlled beforehand.
Yeah.
Right. And it will be very interesting to see which of these disqualifications are rescinded.
Yeah.
The further thing is, and this is the thing which really annoys coaches, right? Firstly, PJ knew what was going on because PJ's out there telling King and Adekunle to get back to the bench. Get back in.
Now, I remember the first time I ever recall a mass disqualification was a semi-final first leg, Leicester at Bracknell. They might have been called Thames Valley at the time. And what had happened was something came on court, and it was not long after this rule about not coming into the court had come into play, because before that they didn't have the rule, and that's why they brought it in, because people got running on for a fight. And a load of people came on the court, and Michael Hales knew of the rule, pulled all the Tigers players back, and then was pointing to the ref. Look, they've all come on the court. And 3 or 4 Leicester players got ejected, got suspended for the next game, and missed the semi-final second leg as a result of it. So PJ was probably playing in that game, I should imagine. Maybe he was coaching. I feel like he'd probably still be playing at that point. So he's been around for long enough to know the rules. And to be fair, even during the sort of explanation of it, he didn't seem massively irate in everything.
Well, he's not massively irate because his American point guard is still in the game.
Yeah.
Bristol's American point guard isn't still in the game.
Yeah.
That's ultimately these things.
But Andreas is, and obviously Andreas is the other way around. But Andreas's reaction was borderline. He got a technical for it, but it was borderline more than one technical. If
I
not,
thought he got two because he shot 2 foul shots.
Oh, did he get? But he couldn't have got 2 himself. One of them had to be on somebody else.
Well, they shot 2 foul shots. And I only saw them call 1 technical. So,
yeah,
but they shot.
I didn't know whether the extra foul shot was because they had more people on the bench or something like that, and therefore it was 4 disqualifications to 3 or whatever.
That may be right. You may be right. I felt extraordinarily empathetic for Kapoulis because the reality is that what the referees did was something which was just designed to calm the game down. What they didn't do was address what had actually happened. And what they didn't do was to address the cause of the situation. And the cause of the situation should have been addressed. And that was, and we've seen this before. I had a bugbear about it last year. If you remember, Derek from Leicester did some video footage last year of Lockett and Defoe at Bristol.
Yeah.
Where Lockett's talking all this stuff, and Defoe's just looking at the ref saying, "You listening to this?" And the ref double technical. It's like, well, no, you don't know what's going on. You don't double technical just because you're trying to control the game. You have an obligation to get to the bottom of what happened and why it happened, right? So as I say, what that should have been, it should have been technical on Hassan, possible technical on Rodgers for coming involved as well. Because in technically, I mean, as I say, I wouldn't. You take a technical for the team for that, but nevertheless, you do what you meant. But technical on Sam, technical on Rodgers for escalation. Then Evans has to go because Evans is on the court looking for trouble. And then if you're not sure that somebody else has been on the court, you cannot throw them out. You can't do it. You have to be sure. And as I say, it will be interesting to see which of these disqualifications are rescinded. I think a few of them should be. And in the past, this has been a 1-game ban, automatic 1-game ban.
I checked on that because I obviously got asked the question and it's changed back and forth. So I did email the league and said, is a disqualification an automatic 1-game ban? And I got the answer back, no.
Interesting. All right. Okay. It was last year, the year before.
So my assumption is that because it has been in the past and somebody did something and they changed it. But
good for them if they have. There should be a discretion, but they have to also have a way of dealing with what's going on. So that it was unfortunate, and I felt for Kapoulis because I'd have been wound up. I'd have been wound up with the fact that hang on, this is happening in front of my bench in my timeout. Right? There's no reason for any Plymouth player to be anywhere near me, anywhere near our bench. The game is over. The game has been stopped. No problem with the Plymouth guys coming on the court to high five. Okay. But there's no reason for Hassan to engage Samuels as Samuels is just walking back to the bench. And what the refs have to do is they have to get the first one. Right. And then from that moment, everything makes sense. You form a determination. So what happens is at the end of the day, and then, as I say, I think, losing Delpesh and there was maybe notice somebody else as well.
I've got the 5s that we've got. So the 5s that were left were Jacob, Simmons, Samuels, Rodgers, and Thomas Edwards for Bristol. Dusha, Hassan, Williams, Hart, and Graham Bell. And you would say that Plymouth had a better 5 than Bristol in comparison to what would be their normal starting 5.
They benefited. I mean, it's a chance, and that's why you can't do it randomly. That's why you can't just say.
And also in terms of the balance of the 5. You
can't just say everyone goes. You just can't do that. That's why you have to do it on a methodical basis and say, I saw him. Who did you see him? Did you see him? Did you see him? Right, he's out. He's out. And that didn't happen. So. And on top of that, because of the feeling of injustice that he felt, which I have some sympathy for, and hopefully I've explained the reasons why, they got 2 foul shots in the game, which was overtime. So this is stuff really impacts, impacts the game down the line as well. So yeah, you've got to go back, you've got to go back at the trigger point, and you've got to look at all the little different things that happened, the reason it built up to what it built up to. And it's hard because, you have to control games in very different ways. Being a basketball ref, a BBL ref is extremely tough. These guys aren't professionals. They're not paid to be professionals. If we wanted to pay them a proper wage, the league couldn't afford it, let's be honest. If we had 20 refs paying 30,000 a year to be refs, we'd all love it. That's £600,000 that the league doesn't have, so it's not going to happen. So, these guys will have traveled a distance to get to the game, and they've got to try and manage the game the very best that they can. And they're dealing with emotional teams who are playing aggressively. And I just think they gave those guys in that game too much rope. And so next time I complain about too quick a technical, you can come back to me and say,
well, you've got to get on top of it early.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of what refs have to deal with, isn't it? They have to deal with that balance. And it's easier. But watching it back, you can see it. If you look at the moment in the game, you can see where the feeling was. You can work out which players it was, and you go from there. So there we go.
Shall we?
Let's crack on.
Shall we talk about a bit of basketball now?
Absolutely.
I think we've done 20 minutes probably on that, but let's get to some basketball. Before we sort of get into the actual he scored, they scored sort of thing. Obviously it's 5-on-5, and there are still 12.5 minutes (brackets 20.5 minutes) left to play in the ball game. And if somebody fouls, when you've only got 5 players, if somebody fouls out, you play with 4. So that was the other sort of undercurrent of the remainder of the game and overtime, is if anybody commits a foul, commits 5 fouls, they're out of the game, and it's 5 against 4. So Joe Hart early in the 4th quarter picked up his 4th foul. Josh Rogers with 6:22 to go picked up his 4th foul as well. So those two in particular had a lot of game to play on 4 fouls, and you could see, it affected the way they defended. Yeah,
they're obviously walking the tightrope, and I thought it was quite a well played game, amongst everything else. And Plymouth kind of got away with it, got away from the game, but Bristol really dug in. I thought they showed a great deal of fortitude to kind of come back, to make plays. They were playing with an unusual 5. Samuels played extremely aggressively. He didn't back down at all. Did really, really well. Developing every week, and he was kind of the leader on the court. Simmons kind of benefited from the extra minutes, and the other guys are hard hat guys. Jacob and Thomas Edwards and Rogers are just playing hard and doing what they're meant to do. I thought Plymouth got a little bit tight down the stretch. Williams had gone for about 30 points, but he kind of reverted to putting up some pretty average shots at the end. I think he went over 3 or over 4 in the last 2 minutes. He almost like he was reliving the shot he'd made against Manchester, and Bristol had a real shot at putting the game away. Jacob makes a big 3 in transition with about 55 seconds left.
85-86.
85-86, and I think they get a stop and they get some foul shots, don't they?
Yeah, Williams missed. Then Hassan got his 4th foul on the next play. Samuels goes to the line with 20 seconds to play, makes them both. It's 85-88. I can't remember. I've got sideline here with 11.5 seconds to go. I can't remember how it got to a sideline, but it's a sideline. They run Williams around off a screen in the corner. He fires up a shot, misses the 3, and Hassan and Simmons goes for it, and it deflects off Simmons and out of bounds. So they've now got 5.2 seconds to go. They've got Dusha inbounding, and the thing I couldn't believe was he inbounded it to Hassan at the 3-point line.
So this was the moment where, for all you say about the refs, Bristol's lack of end of game execution hurt them again. It hurt them regularly, and it did in this as well, because Bristol, Plymouth weren't ready. They'd run their play, as you say. It didn't really make much sense what they were running. They weren't running anything to get an open 3. So what happened was Dusha inbounded to Hassan. Hassan didn't want to shoot it. So Simmons at that point is off Hassan, but then he pushes up onto Hassan. Dusha goes down to the corner. And at that point, if Corey Samuels steps in between Dusha and the ball, the game is over, right? Because it's a 3 tie. So all Samuels has to do, and it's equivalent to the play that I would talk about with Josh Steele and Rod Glasgow at Sheffield, Manchester at the beginning of the season when Glasgow made a floater.
Yeah.
All Samuels has to do is to force Dusha to go back door. If he forces Dusha to go back door, the game is over, right? And because either that or Hassan shoots a fadeaway 3 or something, which, But instead, not only does he get caught on his heels and then let Dusha come up for effectively a handoff, Simmons is defending it like it's any play in the game.
Yeah.
And he's back off. So there's 2 mistakes, all right? They allow Dusha to come round to his right where he's good, catches the ball 3 feet outside the foul line, the 3-point line, makes a hell of a shot.
Yeah, hell of a shot.
Hell of a shot. Unbelievable shot. Clutch shot, takes the game into overtime. Great job by him. Should never have been allowed to happen. If Bristol execute that properly, looking at the score and the time, it's game over. Yeah. As soon as they throw the ball, Hassan, that should be the game. You face guard Dusha, you face guard the other guys, it's dead. So,
I mean, the other thing you can do in that situation is just foul Hassan.
He could have fouled Hassan, yeah. But they just, it was almost like no one knew what was going on.
Yeah.
It just took, get the ball. Elvisi was the only one who knew what was going on. Comes off the king, catches the ball, knows I've got to shoot a 3, has to shoot a 3. So for all I talk about, Bristol being a little bit hard done by earlier, they got to finish that game. So then we get into the first overtime, and again, it becomes random.
Yeah. So first of all, Raf Thomas Edwards gets his 4th foul early in the first period of overtime. So he joins the other 2 in, having to think every time he's playing defense as to what do I give up, rather than, because against 4, you're going to almost always lose. I remember Leopards winning an overtime game once with 4 because the other team got confused, and I think they had Richard Johnson and Rod Brown, and they were just running around manically and hitting shots. Anyway, back to present day. But this game, it was a bit, to be fair, they've played since 2:20 to go in the third quarter without substitutions, so they will be a bit.
And it did slow down. It did slow down a little bit. The game did slow down a little bit. That's right. But Bristol's defense held up primarily.
Yeah.
And they got themselves into a position where the game was basically done.
It was there. So Williams scores to make it 94-all with 1:13 to go. Samuel, inside a minute, scores, turnover, and an easy run out for Jacob, which at that time of the game, or in that sort of level of fatigue, anything like that is just gold dust. So they're up 2 shots again with 37 seconds to go, and then another steal. Thomas Edwards, great play, comes up with the ball, and Simmons has a layup with 20 seconds to go. They're up 6. The game is finished.
Yeah, 2 things about that. I mean, the first thing about that is I felt for Simmons because he really shouldn't have had the ball at that point. And he shot the layup, and you think, how's that a problem shooting a layup? There's no one anywhere near him. Just dribble it out. Dribble. But he's a big guy, so he's not going to. He's probably thinking, I get a layup. I don't have to make foul shots, So I get that. It's just that if I'm on
up 6, how can we lose?
How can you lose? Yeah, but still, if you're on the court, you're up forward, the clock ticking is better than being up 6 with the opposition having the ball, as we found out. And so you really shouldn't have thrown in the ball. But there was kind of a little press, a little kind of. He was ahead, he was open, so they threw in the ball. So he makes the layup. But the problem with making the layup in those circumstances, unlike if you're fouled, is that you don't get time to set your defense.
No.
So Plymouth were able to come back down, 1 pass. Joe Hart is on the wing. Joe Hart, smart. Coach Joe, obviously, he was in our team for a year. Understands time, game, score. We're down 6. Has to be 2 possessions. Have to make a 3. And he's a shooter anyway. So within 2 seconds of Simmons making that shot, the ball's at the other end. Hart makes a 3. So
with cramp as well, you could see. It's like, God, yeah.
And he's probably had his beard's probably taken too much, something like that. Anyway, so that is that kind of lets him back in a little bit. And then I thought 3 consecutive plays, I thought Bristol got hosed by the refs. Actually, I thought on any one of the next 3 plays they could have got they could have got a call which would have ended the game, and they didn't get one because it started with
the inbound and Dusha put it away,
and Dusha wasn't even appealing for the ball.
Mm.
Sam, and you can tell by the reaction of the player. I know the reaction of the players is dangerous. I get that. The players will do what they can, but the look on Samuels' face and the look on Dusha. If Dusha gets that steal, Dusha is immediately pointing down there. He's doing everything, and he knew. Yeah, he knew that was him. And for a ref at that point, to call that the other way, was. I think at that point, if I was Bristol, I would think I was cursed. If I'm honest. Then they get the ball inbounds, and Joe comes off a curl, and Bristol play good defense on it, and you can't make it. And I don't know if you spotted this, but what happens is Raoul Graham, who's been making plays the whole game, Raoul Graham Bell, he performs what I'd call the old Defoe arm lock.
Yeah.
And he goes in to rebound that shot, and he locks Josh Rogers up as he's jumping up. He locks him with his right arm under his arm as he's and rebounds and catches the ball with his left hand, rebounds it with left hand, which is a lot of strength. But Rogers ends up spread eagled, and Rogers is a big fella. He's 6'9", right? And he ends up spread eagled, face first on the floor. Yeah. Right? And that's not a natural position for anybody without something having gone on. And what's gone on is that he's been levered out because Graham's been looked at. That's a foul.
In defense of the referees, I watched it first time and I think, wow, what an amazing offensive rebound. And it was when I went back on Synergy where you could slow it down and I watched it at a slower pace. I was like, oh my God, that's a foul.
Yeah, it's a foul. Yeah, I mean, it's a foul. It's not close. And I didn't see the Rogers spread eagling on the first bit because you're looking at the ball in the air, so you don't necessarily see what goes on. But the thing is, the ref's not meant to be looking at the ball. The ref's meant to be looking at the player because that's not his call. So that's a foul. So they got away with that. Yeah. And then Raoul Graham Brown makes an unbelievable
shot. I mean, you talked about him making winning plays last week. That's another winning play.
Yeah, I mean, it was a Reggie Miller. Dribble. I'm going to dribble 8 feet back to the 3-point line. Have the presence of mind to know I need a 3 to release a 3 and to make the shot. And so credit to him for an unbelievable shot. It's just that either one of those 2 calls goes Bristol's way, the game is done. Yeah, right? And it didn't. And then, having made that unbelievable shot, Corey Samuels has the ball with 4 seconds left.
Yeah. So timeout's called. They advance the ball. They've got the ball in the front court, and there's 4.2 seconds to go. They're inbound to Corey Samuels, who drives to the basket
and ends up face first on the floor. Yeah. And he ends up face first on the floor because his foot made contact with the foot of the defender, who wasn't not the defender behind him, the defender who was in front of him. Yeah. And I think at any other point in the game, that's called. Yeah. Because I looked at it to kind of, was the defender outside of his cylinder? Had he just stood in his foot? I don't think he was in his cylinder. I think his feet was a little bit wider than they needed to be. Yeah. But the point being that at this point, you've just had, you had 2 calls gone against you.
Yeah.
And then
that one. So again, what I did because I was watching this one back on BBL Play, the problem now with having nice cameras and all of that sort of thing is the Synergy version doesn't have the commentary and it has the robot camera still. Yeah. But Synergy allows you to go back and play at quarter speed or half speed. So I actually flipped to go look at these 2 plays slowly, and to me it's a trip. Again, in real time I thought oh, that might be a trip, and in slow-mo I thought it was definitely a trip. But as you say, 4 seconds ago, tied ball game.
You see, and you can't abrogate your responsibility, unfortunately. No. I know people will always say they don't like refs to make calls. It was an absolute mashup on Twitter last year when Ed Udansky made a call at Worcester in the last second where a player made a very limited touch on a driver. I can't remember. I think it might have been Bownett was driving to the rim against maybe whoever Matthew Bryan was playing for. Maybe I can't remember, but there was a Cheshire. There was a touch. I can't remember who it was. He drove to the rim. It was one of the first things we talked about on this show. And there's a little hand on the back, nothing more. Hardly changed, but he called it. And you can't. You can't not call things just because it's last second. In those 2 plays, the Graham Bell foul and the Samuels non-foul, or Samuels foul, both times the refs swallowed the whistles at the end of the game. That's, you know, and you can't do that. So
Well,
Bristol on that basis, at this point, I think, they've had the rough end. That's all I'll say. I'll go as far as saying they've had the rough end.
Well, they could quite easily have lost the game there and then were it not for Chris Bourne, because I don't know if you saw this.
I saw Andreas.
At that point, Andreas exploded, and Chris Bourne played the best defense he's ever played in his career there, because he got in front of his coach and kept him away from the referees, because obviously a technical there is a free throw and they could lose the game.
Yeah, but I think it's a tie game. It'd be a free throw at the beginning of the next overtime period.
Possibly, but it's a risk to take. But
anyway, even so,
but he'd have been out of the game as well.
Yeah, what I will say, what I'll say about, you know, and there's been some nonsense talked about Capullo's being unprofessional, all this stuff. You know, that is the epitome of professional. He is battling for his guys, right? He knows what he's seen. He's not happy with what he's seen. Hopefully, I've just explained it from his perspective what he's seen, because it's what I saw watching the game as well. And his job is to show his team that he's out there for them.
Yeah.
No, and that he is committed to them, and he is going to support them in every way, shape, and form. Now, Chris did a great job. He did what every assistant coach has to do. There's no way in the world I would ever have done that, because I'd have been knocked out. right? But I'm telling you that now. But Chris did a great job. But I'm not going to get on Andreas. Or say that, he's got to calm down, or he's got to quote marks be professional, or nonsense like that. No, he's doing his job. This is a proper competitive sport where people's jobs are on the line. It isn't an afternoon out at the theatre. You know, if people want that, go watch Bulls. You know, this is passionate sport. He's a passionate guy, and the reality is actually, I'll take that back, because it doesn't matter whether he's a passionate guy or not. Right? I don't regard myself as being particularly passionate. Right? If that happened to my team, I would have been up like him. Albeit I was only the assistant, so I can't really be quite as, you know, like that. But in my mind, that's the way I would have been. Yeah. Right. And so I have every empathy for him, because, as I say, you know, one thing, two things, and then maybe when it gets to the end of the game like that, and you've won the game and it's taken away from you. You know, let's just put all this stuff about, you know, coaches should just clap hands, smile at the refs, and all this stuff behind them. It's not about that. Yeah. And, you know, and hopefully every coach in the league understands what I'm saying about that. Because I know I think they do. Yeah. Is saying the same thing.
Yeah, I think they would. I think I don't think you'd get a different reaction from anybody. Just not all of them would have Chris Bourne holding them back.
No, true.
It's a good job to Chris. So second overtime. They were absolutely gassed.
They were,
at this point. I felt a bit bad watching them. It's one of those things where you like flogging an old horse around a thing. They were so tired.
But Bristol just ran out of offense in the second time. Bristol, this was actually the point whereby the lineups mattered most, because Plymouth had more scorers in the game. They had more people who could get them a bucket, and you know, Bristol had actually won the first overtime primarily on their defense, because they'd only given up a few points until the last 6 points in the last 15 seconds. But eventually, you know, Plymouth scorers were going to get to where they needed to get to, people in foul trouble, etc. And Bristol just didn't have the offense; they didn't have anybody they could throw the ball to. Yeah.
So the sort of decisive play, probably 50 seconds to go, Thomas Edwards short on a three. Graham Bell got a run out, and it went to 108, 103, and that was basically it. 13 seconds to go, Josh Rogers did finally file out, which was incredible, because he'd had by that point 20 minutes roughly of on 4 fouls, and he was the first one to go.
He fouled up deliberately, so I mean,
it was one of them. So they played the last few seconds with 4 players, but they were down 7 as a result of the free throw. So that was it. So
I mean, just to be clear on that, I'm not suggesting. I don't think I've ever suggested that refs are trying for Plymouth to win or anything of that nature. It's not about that. You know, ultimately the game is hard enough to call, it's fast enough to call, whatever. But there is a time when you get a confluence of calls which go in one direction, which are the more impactful calls in the game. Hit you down the end, right? And that's why people get to use the phrase, wound up.
Yeah.
Because this is the stuff that matters.
Yeah. So Williams with 35 points, 5 rebounds, 11 assists, played all 50 minutes. Hassan had 26 points. He was 11 of 17 shooting. Graham Bell with 22 points and 13 rebounds. Evans had 20 for Plymouth. Jacob 19, Samuels 15, and Simmons 15 and 15.
Evans had 20 in 2.5 quarters.
Yeah.
You know, Williams had 35 the whole game. You know, if Evans plays the whole game,
yeah.
that's where it comes from.
So let's go to a game we were at and we thought was going to be the peak drama for the night, but it didn't turn out to be so when we went back and watched. Newcastle Eagles 97, Glasgow 95. No Hillsman for the Rocks. Ali Fraser was back. Well, I'm led to believe his operation is this week, so he gave it one more go or 2 more goes for this weekend. We've talked before about Newcastle defensively. They didn't stop much in the first quarter. They'd given up 27 points in 7 minutes and were 13 points behind.
Transition defense was neglectful, woeful, abominable, appalling. You call it what you want. Gave it 22 transition points by halftime, which is a number which makes your jaw drop. You know, and when you're talking about whether a team is locked in or not, and I know we've used that phrase a lot and taken the mickey out of others who use that phrase a lot. Just about the biggest factor on that is transition defense, because that shows how committed you are to getting back. And the half-court defense wasn't actually horrible, albeit it wasn't great, but it was you know, it's survivable. The transition defense was despicable. And Glasgow, to be fair, ran the ball down their throats. But Glasgow are not, other than Jordan Harris, Glasgow are not a team who are particularly suited to running the ball down your throat. You know, Fraser.
There were a couple of times where Ali Fraser's the first man out.
Jogged, he just jogged, and he wasn't sprinting. Ali Fraser couldn't sprint because he's got a broken foot.
Yeah.
You're getting beaten down court by Ali Fraser with a broken foot. You got, Fraser Malcolm was getting to the rim. Johnny Bunyan was just having to stand there, pretend to pass it, and everybody runs away. Yeah. He only made 6 threes against him last week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whatever. And I just thought the other than Justin Gordon's offense early, Newcastle were actually fortunate to be as close as they were in that game. So yeah, you did a stat before the game, or you had it on Sky, the 9th and 10th in points conceded. And I thought that was pretty noticeable throughout the game, shall we say. Talk about men lie, women lie, numbers don't, all that stuff. Numbers don't. And I'm afraid both teams struggled to stop anybody.
So Glasgow were 32-19 up at the end of the first quarter, and it kind of stayed in low double figures for the second quarter. They were 13 points up, having scored 57 at halftime. And then the first 3 minutes of the third quarter, Eagles started 12-4. Defoe hit a couple of jumpers to get them going. Person hit a 3, Johnson hit a 3, and it's 58-61 game on.
Well, I thought Newcastle's defense, when they restricted, I was saying about the half-court defense, it's with Newcastle, and to a lesser extent with Glasgow, it's all defense. I can sit here and talk, he scored, he shot the ball really well, it doesn't matter. Their limitation is offensively, they have the ability to score 90 to 100 points a game, but it doesn't matter if they're not going to stop anybody. So all that really impacts the decision in the results of the game is the defense. And what happened, I thought, at the beginning of the third quarter was, as you say, Defoe and Fletcher took the lead, because Defoe got his jump shots and he hadn't really touched the ball much in the first half, and then bang, 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 he got 2 15-footers off screen and rolls. He's got a lob to the basket. He's got 6 early points. But more significant than that was that when they just started defending the screen and roll, Defoe started coming out and putting real pressure on the ball. So he was out there and they were almost trapping at half court, and physically that leads, everybody else has to move then. You know, everybody else, because they're playing 4-on-3 behind, everybody else has to be alert and everyone has to be moving.
Yeah.
And I thought Fletcher and Defoe's defense kind of set the tone for the rest of the way. And the rest of the way, the Newcastle's half-court defense wasn't great, but it wasn't that bad. They gave up 38 in the second half. And it got a bit harder for Glasgow to score down the stretch. And Ali Fraser wore out as well, which didn't help them.
Yeah.
But Glasgow, to be fair, they're playing without Hillsman. Gareth's not playing for whatever reason. That's a decision or an injury. It's not being particularly clear. But he's dressed in his gear, so you'd have thought he'd have found some minutes for himself. And they demonstrated what they've shown all season, which is nice spacing. Fraser Malcolm made some layups, which meant he made some threes, so he was really impactful in the game. And they kind of stuck at it all the way, and Jordan Harris was the best player on the court, and with his athleticism at both ends. So they stuck at it till about 2 minutes to go.
Yeah.
And then they absolutely went dry, and Ramon Fletcher took over.
So Johnson 3, Johnson drive, Harris drive, 90 to 95, 2 minutes to go. Glasgow with the lead, and then, as you say, it became the Fletch show. I mean, that's what.
Well, what he did was he got to his spots, and for the first time in the game, he got to the high post, caught the basketball turn, and managed to get around Johnny Bunyan to his left for a layup. Neither team had any interior defense other than a little bit maybe of Defoe. Jack Domi only played 3 minutes, got 2 fouls, never played again. Johnson's a big guy, but he really didn't show that much interior defense I could see. So Fletcher got there. Then Eagles got a couple. Jordan Johnson put up a couple of drives. A couple of drives whereby he didn't really get that good look. And
the first one he had a 3, and then Corey Johnson made. So Fletcher scored 140 to make it 3-point game. Yeah. Johnson missed a 3. Jordan Johnson missed 3. Corey Johnson made 2 free throws with 1:08 to go, 94-95. Then he had Jordan Johnson had a drive in. Got sort of wrapped up. He may have took some contact in there, but the possession arrow goes to Newcastle.
That was the Defoe, where Defoe kind of reached, but Gordon got his hand on the ball.
Yeah.
I couldn't see from where I was sat or the camera whether Defoe actually got him or not. You're right, you might have, but you saw, but Gordon certainly had his hand on the basket.
Gordon definitely had his, and then Gordon gets fouled at the other end, and again, it's another one where, from the angle of the TV, it didn't look like much of a foul by Vance Johnson, but Gordon goes 1 for 2 from the free throw line. So 42.8 seconds to go. It's 95-95, and then Johnson had the ball, went to attack, little stop and go, got in, fall away, and that was the one really. Me and Ray were talking about it after the game. If that goes in, he just didn't have enough of it.
Well, basically, the ball's in the hands of the 2-point guards, isn't it? Who makes it? And I thought, to be honest, that was, given that Johnson had basically an unoccupied, unmolested route to the rim for most of the game, it was quite refreshing as a Newcastle watcher. As far as saying watcher, as a Newcastle watcher, to say that he didn't, and to say that the lane was finally clogged, and that he had to shoot a shot which isn't really a shot. He's not really a fadeaway guy.
No.
No, if you look all season, he's been making players go into the rim. He's been making floaters, but he's not really being a spinny kind of fadeaway guy. And I don't think he's healthy. He's not the same. He's either mentally shot or he's physically not well, because he's not the same player we saw.
It could be the dog days of February with the minutes that he's played as well. This is the time of year that if you just go and watch a team every other week, you might not realize the sort of grind of it through the course. And this is the time, the dog days of February, where the playoffs are still a ways off there, and it's been a long time since you've been home and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's cold in Scotland. Yeah. And he's from Texas, I think, or somewhere. So there's something I don't know. But I mean, he's not right. I mean, the player that I saw the first game of the season, compared to the player that watching at the moment, isn't the same player. And as I say, I think I tend towards something physical as well, to be honest, because just he obviously got injured against Sheffield the week before as well, which didn't help. Even before, we tend towards something physical.
So Defoe grabs the rebound on that miss. They come down the other way, and Fletcher in the high pick and roll, comes round 17 foot. We've seen that video play out before.
Yeah, good defense. I thought it was good defense from Glasgow, actually. I thought Johnny did the right thing. He forced him to his right. He stayed, Gordon kind of glanced him on the screen, but I thought Johnson was probably a little bit deep, because once you've sent Fletcher, once you've sent Ramon to his right, you know that Johnny's coming over it, and Johnny got there to really trouble the shot as much as he could without fouling, because you're up on his shooting side, and so Johnny's on the shooting side of him, which meant Ramon, if you look at the video from behind, he actually had to fade a little bit on the shot, get it off. But I'm thinking you're sending him to his right. At that point, you want Vance Johnson to be up another step, make Fletcher at that point go, take another dribble, and then he's attacking you he's attacking to the right, which isn't his favorite. He can finish.
Yeah.
You've got a chance.
Come back with that.
You've got to come back with his left hand, but at that point, you've got a chance, if you're the big, of getting back there and getting something on it. Instead, you give that guy a 17-foot pull-up jump shot. He's in a bit of rhythm. He's been distributing the ball all night. He suddenly becomes a scorer. Another 15-assist game, and bang, he makes the shot. And
my only thing at the time was whether he went a little early there.
I think I would probably say not, and the reason for that is two. One, he doesn't know he's going to shoot the pull-up when he goes. He might be attacking the rim. Secondly, he might be thinking, well, as soon as this guy pinches, I'm throwing the ball out to the wing to Corey Johnson. At which point, if he goes with 4 seconds to go, he does that, and that shot's going up with 2 seconds to go. So I mean, if you're Kobe Bryant and you're shooting, you can go with 1 second to go. You can put the shot because no one else is touching the basketball. I don't think Ramon has that in his game.
No.
I think he will make the right play most of the time, and also because he doesn't have the physical capabilities to necessarily get any shot off against anybody, because he's only little. That's the reality of it. But he can draw the defense, kick it, or he can get the shot if they take it. So it was, I think Newcastle would have preferred he'd be gone 3 seconds later once he made the shot, but obviously he chose to do that at the time. And that gave Glasgow a chance, didn't it?
Yeah, so they call a timeout, advance the ball. Person knocks it away. Again, that was another one that was...
Looked pretty clean, didn't it? Yeah, it did. But I mean, I didn't get a good angle on that at the time. Just that ball went forward. But again, this is the thing, you see, if you're a ref at that point, if you think there's a bit of contact, you call it.
Yeah.
You don't want, at the end of the day, what's the worst thing that happens? The ball goes out on the sideline again. If you think there's a bit of contact, you call it. That's what they didn't do in the Bristol game. There was contact and they didn't call it. And that anyway, so I'm not going to get on the refs for that.
So the ball goes to the opposite side, so in front of the benches. And this time Johnson coming round off a screen, got the ball. I mean, he was well challenged, but he almost hit that shot.
He did.
It would have been 3, so it would have won the game.
It was as good a look as you're probably going to get with 2 seconds. As you say, a person went around off the screen. I was a little bit disappointed that none of the Eagles... It's not Person's job to be, because Person's chasing off screens. All his job is to do is to stay connected. Yeah, it's for one of the bigs under the basket or one of the other guys under the basket to see that coming, or the guy who's defending the inbounds to think which player we're going to take the ball out the hands of, and to look over his shoulder and to see Johnson coming and to get there and to kind of take that look away. So I hope Newcastle caught a break. I mean, it'd be a hell of a shot to make. It still wasn't an easy shot, and probably a 25% chance of making that shot. And Jordan Johnson hasn't been making many threes recently either. So it's certainly odds in the favour of the defence, but they gave themselves a shot to win, and you always try to win on the road and overtime at home, So I would have been. That's two games now. Dan Clark with a 3 and Jordan Johnson with a 3. Whereby. Newcastle wouldn't be on a winning streak if those guys had made shots. And that's what happens with scoring races. The last one to score wins.
Yeah. So Gordon with 24 points and 9 rebounds. Person another
10 rebounds because they didn't give him the one on Johnson's shot at the end. They should have.
Was it in time?
I don't know. The shot went up. I don't know if the rebound was. I'm being picky.
Person with another 20-point game. Fletcher with another 15-assist game, 13 points as well. Fraser 25 and 8. We've talked about how they're going to miss him. Harris 21 and 6 assists. Vance Johnson, he had a good game. 11 and 6. Jordan Johnson had 14, 7 and 11. Oh, Malcolm as well, 15, hit some shots.
I don't want to be. I mean, I don't want to be. But Johnson showed more than he had showed.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it was against Newcastle's defense.
Yeah.
You know, it's 11-6 in a 95-point game.
Yeah,
so
I suppose.
what he's meant to do.
He just looked like
he looked like he belonged out there. Yeah, I get
yeah,
that. I do that. But he's not. I'm not sure what he is. I'm not sure if he's a 5 or a 4. And if he's a 5, they don't need him because they've got Fraser and then Jack Donnelly's not playing. Although they haven't got Fraser now, so that's going to change. If he's a 4, he should be playing more 4, but he wasn't. They didn't have Hillsman who was playing the 4, and Gareth didn't play. They basically let Fraser Malcolm play, and that's a tough. I mean, it's tough. But somewhere they got to draw a line in the sand. Glasgow, and they got to restart the whole season and restart it for the next 2 months and create manageable targets for themselves. And they didn't do that tonight either. So when it's going to happen, I don't know.
Let's get on to the least dramatic game of the evening on Friday. Leicester Riders 90, Sheffield Sharks 77. No Mo Walker for the Leicester Riders. Jackson with 9 early points for Leicester. They jumped out to a 15-8 start after 5 minutes and were looking pretty good. But Sheffield second quarter got a bit of momentum, hit some threes. Wallace, Johnson. It was reasonably close in the first half. Yeah,
it was interesting. Leicester were interesting because they went away from what they normally go, the normal kind of set routine coming out the first 4 or 5 minutes, and they force-fed Jackson. And Jackson's been a guy all season who you don't actually see. You know, he's very effective, but you don't really see him until he's being effective. Well, in this game, they threw the ball to him early and often, which actually took the ball out of Crandall's hands, and Crandall was very quiet in the first half. 2 points, 1 assist. And so I don't know if that was a ploy. The guys in the commentary who I thought did a good job were basically, you know, saying that they maybe they looked at a mismatch against Routinho and they were going at Routinho, but it kind of changed the dynamic of the Leicester offense throughout the first half. And as a result, you know, Gino got a bit touchy as well. He got a technical, and you know, it just wasn't right. In the meantime, Sheffield have got some kind of guys who.
It wasn't much of a technical, to be fair.
No, it wasn't much of a technical, no.
We're going on to your list of ones that probably don't need to be called. That looked like one that didn't need to be called.
Was it? I can't even remember, to be honest. Was it language, or was it just?
It was just he wasn't happy about not getting a call or something. It felt like not very much.
But... Well, they have this thing I'll get onto in a minute, which I was going to say. It's about what is visual dissent and what isn't visual. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because. There was twice in the second half where I thought actually he did pretty obvious visual dissent and not getting a call. But you know, I don't know what is a tech and what isn't a tech in those circumstances. I never ever prejudge a referee in relation. If someone says something to a ref, it's the ref's decision. It's the ref's decision as to whether or not it crosses the line or not. Nobody else. You know, you can talk to the ref all day in an appropriate way and not get a technical. The fans can't understand it because you're totally in the ref's ear. And you think, why is Conte talking to him? But if you're talking appropriate, it's fine. But if you know there's a line, across the line, you get a tech. But anyway, there was an element of frustration from him. And also Sheffield have got these guys who are kind of pleasingly keen to get under people's skins. Wallace in particular is, you know, I've talked about him already. You know, he has a presence about him, which is really, I don't really give a damn, to use a phrase which I can use on appropriate for all the under 15s watching this. I assume there are, I hope, very, very few. Because
I think there are very, very few.
He's getting yourself a life, you know. Anyway, but for anybody in the PG, you know, I don't give a damn, that type of thing. You know, and I know, you know, Rod Glasgow doesn't really take a backward step. He's not in your face, but he's also, you know, he's got a bit of faceness about him. And Johnson's an irrational, the new guy, Antoine Johnson. It looks to me like an irrational confidence guy. It's just basically, I can make any shot you want. He has that in his mindset, and he's coming in and he's gunning away, and he had 25 in this game. So, you know, they're kind of a team which is developing a little bit of bravado. They didn't, and to a certain degree, Atiba is letting them, and is kind of happy to run with those small lineups. And at one point, he even had Kipper Nichols playing the 5 in the fourth quarter. You know, and then all the big guys weren't on the court. So I think that kind of tetchiness of the Sheffield team, I think the fact that they actually seem to have a plan to defend Gino, and they were primarily sending him left off the screen, which I think is, if that's what they were trying to do, is the right thing to do. I'm not sure if it is what they're trying to do, but And it just kind of meant that the game stayed tight. And
Yeah.
Leicester, the thing is, Leicester's wings are becoming ever more confident. Whelan, Jackson, etc. They're now beginning to come into their own as well. And, they're scoring the ball so efficiently that even when not all cylinders are firing, Leicester are still good, and Adekoya as well, who's demonstrated that
it was from those spots. It was tight until the 3 minutes into the fourth quarter, and Adekoya score, Whelan 3, Loving score, and suddenly Leicester lead by 9 with 3 minutes to go.
Yeah, and they kind of stifled them a little bit. I thought what was interesting was that Rob stayed with Adekoya, didn't come back with Nelson Henry. Adekoya is a small ball 5. That's his best spot. He can play the 4. But in this game, Loving played 40 minutes, because it was short. Yeah. So basically, Adekoya is playing the small ball 5, and he has the thing with being a small ball 5 is kind of the Draymond Green kind of position, is that you have to be strong enough to defend bigger guys, but you also have to be you have to be quick enough to attack them. Yeah, and so that it helps kind of have someone 6'6", 6'7", strong upper body but quick feet and ability to knock down shots. That makes him a perfect small ball 5. And they kept him in the game ahead of Nelson Henry. So he's the third choice 5 behind Nelson Henry and Walker. And his defense, and none of Sheffield's bigs could impact him. And so, as I say, Atiba ends up playing all the small guys primarily. And Sheffield just it wasn't really one player, any one specific player. They just kind of ran out of offense a little bit. And maybe Leicester's discipline defensively helped them. Crowdle got going a little bit, which made a few plays at the other end, got some shots. And as you said, at that point, the game disappeared without you. Yeah, it was decided without you realizing it was being decided.
Yeah. There was a bit of a nothingness between Crandall and Wallace. With again, it was another one on a timeout because Atiba comes out to say something, and then Rob comes out to say something. Coaches are allowed on the court, but the rule is they're supposed to be de-escalating things. Whether they were de-escalating, I'm not quite sure. Don't de-escalate. But it was one of them where they're walking by each other, and Gina's got his arms up, and then he put Wallace puts his arms up. There was just a bit of
macho. A bit of macho, really wavy.
It was. It was.
That's what it was. And
it's one of them. The referees can just say, "Oh, sit down, fellas," and whatever. But they chose to tee them up, and of course, because Gino had got the technical in the first half, he's out of the game on 2 technicals.
The intriguing thing about that isn't about Gino, because he's been here long enough now that we kind of know what gets him ticking. This time last year I was speculating about it. This year we know that there are times he can get a bit touchy. There are times he can take over games. He needs to be he's one of these guys who needs to be fully involved and impacting things that is going on. And he also has, like all great players, certainly in our league, he has the ability to have a running dialogue with the referees in a way that the referees don't immediately take against. Right, and that's a real skill, right? To have that, to be able to do that, and you'll see it with a lot of the guys. You'll see it with a lot of the better players who've been here for longer. They've kind of figured out, what you can say to the refs, how you can just sidle up to them and say to them, call them by the first names, all the tricks in the book. The interesting thing is Wallace. Because Wallace hasn't been here for any of that, right? He's and this is why I'm interested in him, because he's a guy who doesn't seem to want to back down to anybody, and it's easy to come into a league and all the Americans can be quite friendly and talk to each other off the court and be deferential to each other on the court and all this stuff, and all the Corinthian fans love the fact that there's all this respect and all that, but in reality these are guys you're trying to beat. And there's a time where you've got to stand up to them. If this guy is the best player, and this guy is leading, and this guy is talking the whole game, and this guy is acting on the court like he is the best player in the league. If you want to be better than that, or you want to send a message to say, look, we're here with you. You don't take a backward step. So the interesting thing for me about that was that Wallace just didn't continue to walk to the bench. His team's losing, they're down by 10, the game is over, but he was like, no, I'm here.
Yeah.
Right now, whether he's right or wrong, as you say, in reality, it's insignificant. The game is over. In all terms, statistically, it's insignificant. To the fans, it looks like a bit of nonsense. But in relation to the psychology of players, and in different types of injury players, and that's exactly why. Just so we're clear, this is why it's important stuff, because that's why Atiba comes on the court, because Atiba's defending his guy. That's why Rob runs 30 feet, 40 feet to get there to defend his guy. Right? Because those, and just like I was saying about Andreas before, those players need to know that their coach isn't just going to say the right thing, but their coach is going to have their backs, right? And he is on their side, because that's what makes players want to play for people. And so all of that stuff, it's like a mini drama. It's like, a mini Othello or Hamlet or something like that. It's all going on. It all has meaning. It doesn't to the game, it doesn't to people who are watching, and it might just look like a couple of spoiled brats just being silly, right? But it has meaning, and I'm intrigued. And so when people look at that stuff, just have a think about it, and just think, what are these players trying to accomplish, and where are they in their careers? Where are they in their positions on the team? Are they the leader of their team? Are they trying to assert themselves within their team? And because that carries forward, and that will be remembered. Those two will remember, then they will play each other again, I think.
Yeah.
And that will be remembered.
Loving with 23 points, as you say, played all 40 minutes, which doesn't happen often for a Leicester player. Whelan with 17, Crandall 15 and 4. Not a lot off the bench for Leicester, just 12 points. Johnson did give a lot for Sheffield off the bench, 25 points, 7 rebounds, 8 of 12 shooting. Nichols 12, Rotino 12. They killed them on the board, 35-19. Sheffield won the
Loving has really stepped up his production and his responsibility within the team. It's almost like he's figured out now that actually he is one of the main guys. Where initially he probably beginning of the season he was kind of finding his way. He's expanded his game a little bit. He's a little bit more off the dribble. He's a little bit more kind of cutting the spots to rise up and shoot it. Every time I watch him, I see Scott Martin in his game, in the way that he moves and the way that he plays. I think he has to be right on the top of the scouting report for Leicester at the moment. If you're playing against them, because he's just so efficient, so sound a player.
Let's move to Saturday night. Surrey Scorchers 62, Cheshire Phoenix 90. No Jules Dangakodo, Martel McLemore, legend Robertin. Surrey signed a ringer and he didn't play, which was a bit disappointing.
But here's my question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, could what I was looking at it and I was thinking, could Plymouth have not signed him a decade ago? And do you know why I was thinking that?
Why is that?
Because he would have been a real Des ringer for love.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh, we
R.I.P. Meat. R.I.P. Meat. R.I.P. Jim. Cher's still around.
We might need to just shut down the whole show after that. That's I don't know how to pick back up from that. Ben Mockford was back. Niall did a great job on comms. Good job, Niall.
He was fantastic. It was the best. It was the most sense I've heard out of them all. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's going to kill me now. Henry Wilkins also signed for Surrey, and he's obviously been watching them closely because he played 1 minute and 12 seconds and picked up an ankle injury, so he fits right in with the team. Hopefully that's not too serious because they've had an absolutely unbelievable time with injuries this year. Mockford back for Cheshire. This was a contest for about 7 or 8 minutes, and then Knicks went on a 13-0 run, and it's 32-18, and that's basically it.
Yeah, Cheshire got the difference between
say anything, as you said, like you said last week with Surrey, they've got so little to work with at the minute. It's hard.
Yeah, I mean, it was a balanced Cheshire roster against non-balanced Surrey roster, and it was non-balanced. As I say, 3 injuries stuffs you, 4 injuries kills you, and it's very difficult for them to do it. They continue to play harder than they were before Christmas. I continue to be frustrated by Stanley Davis making a fantastic play, getting fouled, making the basket, fletching his muscles, waving at the crowd, and then missing the foul shot. That is really winding me up. Almost to the point whereby it's like, Stanley, just make the foul shot first, then do whatever you want. Hamrick is kind of in and out a little bit. I would expect him almost in that team to be a 40-minute guy. Yeah, he's kind of playing minutes here and there. But Cheshire got two healthy 6'9", 6'10" guys in Ocherobia and Dickerson. They got a stretch. They got an athletic guard. They got a point guard who's handling the play. They got two BBL wings in Wright and Carey, and they got Mockford who's a shooter. You know, that's all you need. They had 11 at the beginning of the season. They've got 8 now, and they're far better for it. And they're confident. So yeah, there's very little. Again, it's until Surrey, get the ringer in.
Yeah.
And have a shot at, at least, at the very least, have a shot at getting some of these guys back on court. They're not going to. It's
going to be the same story,
competitive,
so,
because there's nobody else in the league that you look at who's having the same problems as them.
No, it stayed in the teens until Mockford hit a flurry of threes in their fourth quarter and pulled it out to 30. Davis with 21 points, 8 of 14 shooting. Thomas slightly less efficient, 11 points, 3 of 11 shooting. They were 22 of 59 overall. Austin, who was in the starting lineup, 17.7 rebounds, 9 assists. Moxford, those flurry of late threes took him to 17. He was 5 of 8 for 3. Dickerson, 16 and 10. Bradley, 15. Bench points, 41 to 2. Yeah,
well, there you go. Bang. Bang goes the story. Dickerson's interesting because he may be the primary shot blocker in the league now. Looking at the various teams in the league, he has longer than people think. He challenges shots at the rim when he's vertical, when he stays vertical. And they can use him in kind of short minute spells whereby it doesn't matter if he fouls out because you've got Ocherobia to do a lot of those minutes as well. I like the way he's being used at the moment. I think he's becoming more confident, and he may be a plus for them going forward.
So let's go to the trophy semi-final first leg down in Bristol, where it finished Flyers 61, London Lions 81. Shane Walker suited up but didn't play. There was no Andreas Kampoulis either. I didn't find out why at all.
Afterwards, I think Nick, the assistant coach, said that he was sick before the game. So
okay.
Didn't.
This, I didn't think this was tremendous scheduling in the first place to put a trophy first leg semi-final on the back of a double header where you've been down to Plymouth, which is still a couple of hours from Bristol, but on the back of the double overtime game where 5 players had played the last 22 minutes without substitution. This probably couldn't have come at a worse time for Bristol.
I think this is I get frustrated by the scheduling in this situation. I always used to when we were involved in games, and as kind of the observer and kind of separating yourself, you kind of think, well, hang on, this really isn't right. This is a cup competition or a trophy competition. And, can we not arrange, in the cup semi-finals, for instance, there's a weekend set aside. Cup quarterfinals is a weekend set aside. That doesn't happen in the trophy. So in the cup, there's no chance of this happening, but in the trophy there is. So I used to always whinge about it. My head coach always used to use it as motivation to say, oh, they're out to get us or something, so we're going to show up and they were going to win, But I was far more rational. It's like, no, it doesn't. You might be motivated, but your head might be motivated, but your legs aren't moving as fast, Yeah. And I think
but presumably this is their home game, so presumably they picked that date and put it forward.
Yeah, maybe it's what they had, because I know that obviously there's a international break coming up as well, isn't there?
Yeah. Who knows? Which obviously affects them with their coach.
With their coach as well, albeit Mr. Putin might have something to say about that.
Well, there is
at this point in time. So that is frustrating because it's not a level playing field. London, I thought London are playing I'm trying to figure London out. I think they're playing the long game. I hope they are. I'm not sure that. I think they also need to be playing the short game a little bit more, but they're winning, so be it. What I mean by the long game is, they played 10 players in the first half, and the minutes were, everybody came in, everybody played a bit. We're still starting Ryan Martin, who's not really ready to play at this point. Hasn't played for 3 years. We pointed out last year. He's got a BBL body, BBL skill set, BBL player. No question about that. Going to be a good BBL player. But he hasn't played. And you have to get into game shape, you have to get your mental shape, you have to get with your teammates. But they're starting him, which suggests that they're really trying to blend it, kind of fast track blending him in and getting him up to speed, hoping to try and win games along the way. It confuses me a little bit to see him playing 20 odd minutes and Will Neighbour playing like 7 or 8 minutes. And, that is slightly weird because Will Neighbour's been there all year. And I thought in the first half they kind of got in their own way, London. I was waiting for them to think, hang on, this is your chance to win this game by 30 and put this away. You got a team who are already on the ropes. You come in here and outside of Dirk, there wasn't really anybody who seemed to be particularly urgent about, providing the knockout blow. And eventually, obviously, the long game within this game worked because in the fourth quarter they got away and they wore them down with no doubt with all the bench playing all those minutes. But I would like to have seen them kind of go for the jugular a little bit earlier. Bristol played hard. They really did. They just really struggle for offense. We've talked about this before. With their full lineup in without Miller, they're an American short. They're a scorer short. None of their Brits are real scorers, what you would call scorers. They all have parts of the game. They all can score. But they just played hard, but they couldn't get enough. And I thought they got frustrated at the end.
Before, let me just run through and we'll get to that bit because we spent a long time on Bristol earlier as well. So Lions got up 7 or 8 in the first quarter. Flyers had a 9-1 run just before halftime to cut it to 2, and then Ward Hibbert with a 4-point play made it a 5-point game at halftime. They got straight into double figures early in the third quarter, but the Flyers were kind of hanging on, and they were only down 7 going into the fourth quarter. And then, as you say, it's hard for me to say this because I'm not computing the physical of what the night before took out of them, but I thought they kind of just lost the tie by not playing aggregate basketball or not playing in that scenario. Because again, I do a lot of European basketball, which obviously is in little mini groups, so they always count the head-to-head, so they always play with the points difference in mind when they play each other, even though it's not an aggregate game. It's played like an aggregate game. And I thought this was played like a league game where it's got away from us now. Let's try and find a 20-point shot to get back into it. I thought
there were 3 or 4 possessions in the fourth quarter where they went quicker than they should have. And they had some misreads. There was once Evans cut and tried to throw Jacob at the 3-point line, and Jacob's already cut into the rim and they miss him. But what I will say is that even in aggregate basketball, you've got to be able to score. And the reality was, if you look at a lot of their shots in the fourth quarter, they were short. Which is fatigue. They were pulling up. If Evans comes off a screen and somebody's in drop coverage, and the big's under the rim in drop coverage, and he has to pull up and shoot that shot. But if you've got but if he's even on the second level back to back, no matter what happened the night before, he doesn't make it. The problem with London is London run. London can get out on you and score at the other end. And then on top of that, you have the silent killer who's Kajini. Who's kind of a Latinovic style. Just he could close his eyes and make it. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is. You get the feeling he'd wake up at 2:00 in the morning, go out in the yard and chuck it in. He's just absolutely probably one of the best pure shooters we've seen here in a long time. And he had 17 points in 20 minutes, and those points kill you. Those points, 5 of 8 from 3. Those points absolutely kill you because you're looking at Reese and you're looking at Dirk and you're looking at taking the lob away from Kyle.
And actually,
in the fourth quarter, Washburn starts knocking down threes, and then Kajini comes off the bench. You forget about him. He's only doing here for 17 points. It's going to be a struggle to beat London if you don't score 85 points in a game.
It is, and Reese actually had a 4 of 13 shooting night, so that's the night, isn't it?
I was looking at him in the first half and thinking he's got first leg itis, which was whatever happens, we're going to beat them at home. That was just in his body language. It just looked a bit and kind of my side of first leg itis is always, we're going to crush you, so we don't have to worry about playing. And that wasn't, to be fair, players and coaches often think a little bit differently, and then that was probably why. But no, it's progress for London. They are building gradually. I think they got Plymouth twice this week, coming up this week. If they're able to knock those 2 games off, get another week into Martin's legs, and keep everybody healthy and keep everybody happy, then what they are doing, it appears, is that they are focusing a little bit more on kind of the energy, kind of using all the bodies that they have, rotating them in and out, focusing on their kind of the defensive side of it, and hoping that the offense will find itself. I was a little bit surprised Dre Lockhart came in with 1.5 minutes to go, because I think because I think Bristol went on a 6-0 run, and then I thought that was a bit unfair on Dre. He played 3 minutes the whole game, and then he put him in 1.5 minutes to go.
And again, it's the points difference thing. And I know what you're banging on about 6 points when you're already up 20. But again, even the last play drove me nuts. I forget who it was. Was it Jake? Somebody drove to the basket way too quickly.
Too early.
Scored. And then Kajini comes down the other end and hits a 3. So at best case scenario, you've lost a point there. And in reality, you've probably lost 3, because if you'd done that basket at the end of the buzzer, you'd have taken the 2 off the lead anyway.
But see, it does make a difference, because here's the thing, if you're about 23 with 1.5 minutes to go, now let's forget this is London and Bristol, right? Forget it's London, Bristol, all London's talent, the fact that Bristol are struggling a bit for bodies, etc. It could be any 2 teams. You're at 23. You go on a 6-0 run, you're at 29. Game is basically done, right? Basically. Tough. I don't think anyone's ever come back from 29. No,
nobody's come back from 20, to be fair. But
yeah, well, we nearly got beat by 24, 25, and 24-point game.
So
I don't go into 24. That was in the playoff semi-final. But 20, 29 is done. 17 is not done. And so that 1.5 minutes, that 6-0 the other way, does make a difference. But the reality is we all know it is done. Unfortunately, because of the disparity in the talent that London have to just about everybody else in the league apart from Leicester.
So Delpesh with 20 points, 9 rebounds. Evans 15, but 5 of 17 shooting, 1 of 8 from 3-point range. Nobody else in double figures, 8 points off the bench.
If the league had the most improved player, I think I previously touted Thomas Edwards for it, but I don't think Delpesh would technically count because he left last year. Certainly has improved since he was gone. He's having a really exceptional season. He should get credit for that.
Dirk Williams, 19 points and 8 rebounds. Kajini, we've talked about his numbers. Reese didn't shoot well, but had 14 assists. To go with this.
So you see, it's amazing, isn't it? Because you think, oh well, Fletcher had a quiet game. Then you look at the stats. He's got 14 and 15. You think Reese? I'm talking about Reese. He doesn't really seem that fussed. He's got 14 assists. And these guys are seriously good. And it's a bit much for me to sit here and judging them, and when they're putting up numbers like that at the end of the game,
So let's go to today's games. Cheshire Phoenix 80, Plymouth City Patriots 77. This was the game of the 2 form teams in the league. No Kofi Josephs for the Phoenix. Ubiara, I think, got injured in the warm-up. He was in the original starting lineup, and I only just turned on and I heard something in the commentary that suggested he got injured. So they had a bit of a weird starting lineup, I thought, Plymouth, compared to what they would normally have. But they had LVC, Williams, Joe Hart, Hassan, and somebody else.
Are they Cunley?
No, it's Cam King. Cam King,
of course.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, Dusha is probably the one that you would bring in. It does change things a little bit. It makes Williams a bit more of a scorer from the bat. It was I thought it was a fun game. This was.
Yeah, it was.
It was. It got loud in there. We had the advantage of not just hearing the commentator, but also hearing half the crowd. Most of whom were dissatisfied with the
officiating.
It is, I've said before, it is loud in there. It's a good environment in there. It's Northgate was loud, but I think Ellesmere Port is a little bit louder actually. Maybe the acoustics in there or something. I don't know. and you know, and the fans get behind their team, and they were in the game. They also do a hell of a good job of taping up all the lines on the court. If anybody ever does, not an easy job, and that brown tape is used probably more so at Ellesmere Port than anywhere else in the league. Credit to the court staff for that. But no, it was a fun game because Plymouth have a swagger, right? And at the moment, they had it. This is kind of what happened last year as well. If you remember, we talked last year about Plymouth kind of, once they got good, PJ was having them play on the edge. He was happy to kind of let them go and let them be loud and kind of talk a bit and get in people's faces. And he would, every so often, he would pull them back a little bit. But he was happy for them to have that kind of disruptor, agitator mentality. And they're having that. They've got that again. We know Williams is a live wire.
Yeah.
You know, on and I think potentially off the court as well. Then you have kind of the more controlled guys like Joe and Raoul Graham, and then the emotional guys. Obviously, you got Kofi, etc. You know, and because of that, the teams with swagger tend to be almost have irrational self-belief, which can carry you a long way. And I think that's.
And to be fair, the way they've been playing the last few weeks, it's probably rational self-belief right now as well.
I think it is. Yeah, that's probably fair. But what I will say is they won a lot of very close games.
Yeah.
You know, you win game by a point here or a point there, so you can get a little bit more. You know, it's what I was saying about Williams before. You know, in the game against Manchester, he makes the walk-off shot. In the game against Bristol, he shoots 3 or more of them, and they don't go in.
Yeah.
So I think I'm not entirely sold on them at the moment. I'm not entirely sold on them, but what they've got is carrying them forwards, and it's very useful for them. It's very helpful for them. And they played this game like it didn't really matter that they didn't have, you know, Ubiaro or Kofi Josephs playing, because the unit that they've got is clearly enjoying playing with each other, has a bit of togetherness about them, which is kind of carrying them forwards. Now Cheshire, on the other hand, are exactly the same. Because they've got this guy, Larry Austin, who's an absolute jetpack of a player. He's your lighter fuel, you know, and he's flying around the court, stealing, attacking, clenching, whatever it is, muscling, I don't know what you call that. Showing flexing, that's the one. I never got the flex. I'm always jealous about that. I never got the flex. He's doing that, and then you've got your solid guard. You've got your solid guys like Teddy and Mike Cherubia, and you've got Dickerson blocking stuff, Kyle Carey flying around, and name on right being name on right, you know. So the whole game was kind of lined up, and it went back and forwards. Offensively, with both teams scoring the ball quite well in the first half.
So Bradley and Wright, some threes, they got out to an 8-point lead, and then Plymouth had a 20-4 run that gave them an 8-point lead, and Carey makes a 3. It's a 5-point game at half time, and then it was a bit more of the same in the second half, and then it looked like Plymouth were starting to get a handle on it, but then Austin pulled them back into it. 3:40 to go in the fourth quarter. Hassan got his 4th foul and then a technical foul, and that was his 5th foul. So he goes out of the game. They make a couple of the 3 throws, so it's down to a 3-point game, and then Bradley ties it up with a corner 3 at 74.
This basketball karma bloke that we talk about every week. Here's me saying Hassan should have had 2 technicals on Friday night, and he ends up getting one for probably an off word with the referee on Sunday, you know. So I didn't say much, you know, but he must have said something he's not allowed to say. So he felt, so, you know, as I say, these things, nothing ever happens in isolation. You know, nothing ever happens in isolation, and that's kind of the fun of doing this podcast. Actually, is that trying to kind of blend things together, so you know, so you can get people kind of see what's going on from game to game. There's one slightly, you know, not humorous but unfortunate situation where Noah Dickerson fouled, I think, Raoul Graham with his private parts in the third quarter, and got called for a blocking foul after getting a knee to the groin, which I thought was pretty egregious call, pretty unfair. One ref called a charge, the other one called a block. Not quite sure how you block anybody with that part of your body, but there you go. So he was rolling around on the floor for a while, did a Joe Root, and then basically what happened was they got away at Plymouth, and then Larry Austin took over.
Mm.
And he took over actually not with what he's been doing, which has been going full court, but he took over with his offensive rebounding and his aggression and his mentality. And it was kind of one of those kind of refuse to lose games. And it was quite kind of enjoying watching it because most games you get an idea who's going to win quite early on. It always worked like that, but you see the flow of the game. The more games you watch, the more kind of you start judging stuff. This game, I didn't have a clue who was going to win all the way through. And it was Raoul Graham again, made a couple of massive shots and got a couple of massive rebounds. The more he is a real connector in relation to winning basketball. You can see it. It's not by chance that when he's playing at the end and they're winning, and he's to the point whereby when he shot the last one, I thought it would be going in. And he made some shots, but Austin and Bradley, primarily Austin, working on the offensive glass. And the other thing was in the beginning of the fourth quarter, because Bradley got his 4 fouls, Ben went with Dickerson and Ocherobia together, which I don't like as a rule because the spacing is shot, but it doesn't half make them a tough offensive rebounding team. And so Ocherobia is taking up space, Dickerson's taking up space, and then Austin comes in and puts his body in there and gets rebounds as well. And Bradley didn't come back in until the 3-minute mark, I think. And when he comes back in, obviously Plymouth are used to guarding the big guys, and suddenly he's out there in the 3-point line,
and he's hitting the 3,
hitting the 3, and the game's tied.
And it was a little bit tense in the last couple of minutes. There was missed free throws, 24-second violations, fouls on offensive rebounds, and all sorts of things going on. And we get to 48 seconds to go. It's a tied game, 77 apiece, and it almost looked like they were going to get another 24-second violation. With Teddy, he sort of got inside, was dribbling, trying to find some room to get a shot away. Got it away. The implication on the commentary was that it didn't hit the ring, but Austin got it back up in time. I thought it might have nicked the ring as well, but
I don't think I was listening to the commentary at that point, but I didn't see a violation when I was watching it.
Yeah. Either way, it goes in time. Austin puts it in and gives them a 2-point lead. And Dusha comes down, fires up a 3, misses that, and Teddy gets the rebound.
I mean, it was a good look.
It was a kick out.
It was a kick out 3. He made one on Friday night to win the game, or to tie the game, which led them to win the game. And it was a good. I'm sure PJ would have took that shot to win the game. So I was pretty disappointed with Cheshire's defense that he got that shot, to be honest, because again, you're up by 2. By 2, don't give up
a 3.
And
then you think Teddy will go finish the game off here from the free throw line, but he missed the second foul shot, so they've got 3 points. Graham Bell. The other thing about him is the size of him. He's pulls the rebound in, but he's still comfortable dribbling it down court. And I mean the shot was.
He had 2 seconds too few, didn't he? To be honest, it was more of a launch than a shot. He didn't get because he was hurried by it. And he was, he's a guy who primarily he can dribble a basketball, but he makes his plays off footwork, off catch and shoot, off just getting himself set. So that's probably the shot you want Kofi shooting, to be honest.
Because,
but at the end of the day, it was, Cheshire keep winning. Good for them. But they're on that little roll. They've sorted the lineups out. They've got enough. They've got kind of that combination of stabilizers and stabilizers and aggressors on their team. The aggressors are generally the Americans and Dickerson and Austin, and the stabilizers are Okafor and Ocherobia, and everybody else fits around them. So they're even the game they lost against Leicester. They played them tough for 2.5 quarters and then just lost their heads. So they've got a good thing going, but. In the BBL, once you get a good thing going for too long, you start believing you've got a good thing going. When you believe you've got a good thing going, then that's when it stops being a good thing anymore.
I've managed not to note down any of the scorers here, so you'll have to go look on live stats and see who scored on that. Let's get to the last game, and you just said in the Cheshire one you didn't know which way the result was going on that one. This one you did pretty pretty early on. Glasgow Rocks 76, Leicester Riders 105. No Hillsman for the Rocks, no Mo Walker for Leicester, no Gino Crandall either for Leicester. His partner is about to have a baby, so he didn't go to Glasgow. So Connor Washington starts.
Been Friday as well. You can be a bit pitchier when you're
No commentary either. What happened? I thought we got the commentary back in Glasgow.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to give a shout out here. I got told off on Friday night.
Yeah.
I got told off by Johnny Bunyan, who said I must never ever compliment his father.
Okay.
So when I said then John Bunyan Senior exudes basketball wisdom, apparently I think that may have been used in the Bunyan household. So that's probably why he's been taken off air to make sure his dad doesn't get the airs implications.
Well, I mean, I put out on Twitter, Johnson got a couple of early fouls, which probably doesn't help the Rocks in this situation. Jordan Johnson. What probably hurt them a little bit more was giving Leicester basically 10 open 3-pointers in the first quarter, and Leicester hit 5 of them.
The Leicester are shooting the ball well. They don't even have to be open to make them. I mean, Pat Whelan made a couple of. The thing that was interesting for me, watching Leicester. I mean, obviously Glasgow's defense is awful, and their commitment to it was even worse. And to be honest, what Leicester did to them is what Newcastle would have done to them last week, having scored 39 in the first half. If Newcastle were able to maintain the level of intensity and ethic and defensive ethic that Leicester have, because they were down, they gave up 40 against Newcastle in the first quarter last week. So it's not like it's not been coming. They looked. It's harsh, but pretty shambolic at times in relation to their defense. And not at all kind of bought in. And I don't know if Gareth's in the position whereby he's giving them all those players enough rope to hang themselves, and that's why he's not playing. I don't know. There's times where he's playing lads. He's playing Murray Hendry, a little bit, Fraser Malcolm a little bit. And by the way, Friday night the Sky game, I forgot to mention that Rowe managed to butcher Fraser Malcolm, didn't it?
It's his
Malcolm Hendry at one point,
yeah.
I mean, Drew
it was Drew got that the wrong way around. Drew got Murray Hendry and Fraser Malcolm confused. Rowe got Malcolm. He got
the Malcolm Hendry,
Malcolm Fraser. It's Durant. It says kryptonite.
Oh man, all these little white Scottish dudes look the same. I mean, there's a bit of reverse racism going on there. Anyway, but so Gareth's not playing, Hillsman's not playing, and Hillsman and Gareth are kind of the two guys who played that spot all season. Now Hillsman's injured and Gareth's just suited up, so I'm not sure why Gareth's not playing, other than the fact that he's trying to send some form of message to the team, but it's not really working. The thing that was interesting about Leicester was that the ball popped a little bit more without Gino, as it's going to, because Gino's a ball dominant guard, whereas Connor really isn't a ball dominant guard. Connor's kind of half a shooting guard. He's a point guard and half a shooting guard, and that meant the ball moved a little bit more earlier, which meant that the guys got touches earlier. It was less kind of the Crandall, Nelson, Henry pick and roll, which is what you need when the games get tough and tight. But everybody got kind of to feel good early and got shots up. To the point, I've seen Gino's already tweeted something tonight on the lines of, "Am I the problem?"
Am I the problem? Yeah.
No, you're not. I think he knows fine well what's going on. The reality is he's not the problem. He is the solution. But in certain circumstances, as I say, it changes the way the team plays because he's more ball dominant. He's more, they call it the alliterative nickname, the general, actually kind of applies to him because that's how he runs the game. Well, Connor's not like that, and the ball moved, and basically Glasgow didn't try and defend them. I mean, that sounds harsh. Didn't try though. They're there, but being there isn't defense. There was one point in the second quarter where Darian Nelson Henry, I think it might have been off an offensive rebound, was quadruple teamed.
Yeah. He was.
Saw that. There was four of them
around him.
And he threw the ball out to Connor Washington for over three. He had 3 other places. So if you're going to quadruple team somebody, you darn well better get the ball. I was looking at it thinking, what is going on here? And I don't know if it was they got a rebound or a drag to it. But I'm like, and there was another point whereby I think there was a triple team and under the basket, and Loving was wide open at the top of the key. And I'm standing there thinking, like, this is, this is a team that is not on the same, they're not in the same book, let alone on the same page as each other. And mentally, they just seem to have absolutely disintegrated because the talent is, there is still talent there, but they gave up 105, they gave 105 to Leicester today, but in reality, it could have been 120. Right? They gave up 97 or 97 to Newcastle on Friday night. They gave up another 95 and 97 to Newcastle last week. It's just, there's a level of commitment to getting back. There was, I think, at one point, Johnny Bunyan was, Conor Washington went past Johnny Bunyan and he must drill past him from the halfway line, and there was no help at any point, to the point whereby Johnny Bunyan committed an unsportsmanlike foul.
I remember.
But, because, okay, Conor, there are times when Conor is going to get a step on Johnny Bunyan. That's going to happen. But the rest of the team has to be in a position where someone's going to step up and take a charge. Or someone's going to throw, or at least there's got to be some form of strategy to it. And, I thought Gareth was he was kind of on the sideline. He was passive, almost resigned to it, really. I don't know if he said all he can say to that group of players, whether there's anything else left to say. Because, it's kind of, as I say, it's almost better. He'd be better off getting out of his clothes and getting into a suit and saying, "Look, it's you lot, don't look at me." Because he's still one of their better players and he's not playing. So they got a lot to figure out. Leicester, Leicester, we've described them before, they're a bit of a machine. But they're a machine because they pass the ball well. They get back in, they do the basics, they get back in transition. Nelson Henry is critical to that, by the way. He is always where he needs to be. Always. And that is such a valuable skill when you're 6'9". He's always where he needs to be. They clog the lane well, they get out to shoot as well, they get back in transition, they pass the ball to each other well, they play unselfishly, but they can all shoot. And their spacing is generally perfect because they always have a stretch four on the court. Whether it's Loving or whether it's even Adekoya or even Jackson, there's always four guys stretching the court and one guy in the middle. So the spacing is harder for people to stop. And I'm afraid Glasgow didn't get close to it today. No. Glasgow should have been looking at that with, hang on, they haven't got Walker, they haven't got Crandall. We've got
if you're going to beat them, this is it.
They've travelled 4 hours. They've had a night in Glasgow first. But what a luxury that is, dear me. We used to have to drive to Bristol. But no, the
game's gone, mate.
Game's gone, mate. They don't know how lucky they all are. And they probably had padded seats and shit. Sorry, that's just bad language. Sorry, 16-year-olds turn it off. I'm all right. But no, I mean, they just obliterated them. And that shouldn't be happening. Leicester at full strength who wear you down, I get. A Leicester at full strength who dropped 68. A Leicester without the two.
Let me give some of the numbers on the first half. It was 68-37 at half time. Leicester were 11 of 19 from 3 in the first half. 68, by the way, I've got quarter scores going back to 2009. That's Leicester's best in that period. 65 against the Rocks last year was their previous best. They had 4 players in double figures at half time. Loving had 15, Washington had 15, Whelan had 17 at half time. And bear in mind, Leicester scored 68 points in the first half. Their average points against per game this season is 68.5. So if they went on average, they only needed 1 point in the second half to win the game. As it happens, Glasgow got to 76, so that will go up with it. And then I know you said you weren't going to watch the second half, but in the first 30 seconds of the second half, Jordan Johnson went down with what looked like an ankle injury, but it was on the widescreen of the key motion.
Actually, I did see that because it was half time, I think, in the other game. It might something like that. And my immediate thought was that he did his Achilles. This way he went down, and obviously my second immediate thought was, is Rob going to get a technical when you're up by 35 because he's playing game against? That was my second thought.
Yeah.
And my third thought was, oh, actually, he's getting up, so Rob was probably right to complain about the
Yeah,
game being stopped. I mean, I'm not sure if he's carrying something. I just think he must be. You know, he's just, there's just everything about him seems hampered. So yeah, so they lost him as well. But to be blunt, what they needed was a bit of effort.
Yeah.
That
Was your
wasn't-
house guest
yeah.
watching any of that? I'd love to know
He
what
wasn't.
his,
No, I
his thought
didn't let him close to that.
on the defense there. Yeah.
No, I don't have let him close. Watched a bit at the end of the Cheshire game though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Harris with 17 and Fraser with 72 rebounds for Fraser, and they were offensive late in the
shots,
game.
didn't
Whelan 23, 8 of 10 shooting, 6 of 7 from 3-point range. Loving was 4 of 9 from 3 for 22 points. Connor Washington 17, 10 and 5. Adekoya was 8 for 11 shooting for 18 points. Leicester were 15 of 30 in the end, which bearing in mind they were 11 of 19 from at halftime. I feel like we've done the longest episode ever here. So
we have, yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
we bench clearing ball every week, don't we?
We do, yeah.
I just don't know where Glasgow go. That's the thing. I don't know where Glasgow go. They've got Gareth's not playing, so the players will be looking at him thinking, why is he not playing to help us out with all of this? It's just weird. I don't know where they're going. They really got to reset, almost start afresh, and draw a line in the sand and start again. Sorry, but that's it. You're right. The longest episode. I've just extended by 30 seconds.
Well, I'm just going to run down the league table. So we've got that. Leicester top 14 and 1. Cheshire now up to second place with 10 wins and 8 defeats. Amazingly, they've played twice as many games as London. Sheffield are further 2 games back. They are 8 and 6 in third. Manchester 8 and 7. Newcastle 8 and 8. Then are London, who are effectively second, but are in what is that, 6th place, 6 and 3. Bristol now down to 500 at 6 and 6. Plymouth 6 and 10. So basically, they have the same number of losses as Glasgow. So Glasgow would have to win their 2 games in hand just to draw level with them, and that doesn't look terribly likely at the moment. They're 4 and 10, and then Surrey 1 and 12. So Glasgow in danger of getting cut away if Plymouth can keep going at the rate that they're going.
Yeah, I think they've got 2 games against London coming up this week, though, so I'm not sure about that.
Well, with the irrational confidence, they'll fancy.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. And Glasgow obviously got the trophy, which they're still in, bizarrely. So they've got something else. They've got something to focus on. That's the thing. They've got a hometown final in Glasgow there for them. But they just got to pull it together. You know, I mean, they've got Cheshire. They can be, talent-wise, they can match up with Cheshire. Maybe with Fraser, it's tough, but they can still match up with them. But in relation to togetherness and competitive spirit, they're miles apart at the moment. Miles apart.
Right, we shall leave it there. Apologies for it being so long, but blame everything that happened at Plymouth there. In game 1. So have a great week, everybody, and we will see you next Sunday night. Goodbye.